Hello and welcome to the Autocar show. Now the Zest has really made a splash, and with all those full-page ads and hoardings across the country, the buzz was really about the petrol turbocharged Revotron engine. With the gap between petrol and diesel closing in, petrols are making a comeback. So today it's all about that. The Zest against the rest of its sub-4-metre petrol competitors. How does it match up? We'll find out. Stand these cars side by side, and here's what I think. The Amaze and the Xcent look more like three-box sedans than the Zest and the Dzire, whose shorter, stubbier boots make them less proportionate. Still, if I had to choose between the Zest and the Dzire, I'll have to say that Tata have done a better job with tacking the boot on. In fact, the Zest design looks quite refreshingly modern with its sculpted nose and daytime running LEDs. The Amaze and Xcent have a good amount of chrome detailing and are probably the best looking exteriors. But the Xcent looks half a size smaller than the rest. The Dzire, with its long nose and stubby boot, stands awkward in this bunch. Now on the inside again, the Zest really impresses. Like we said before, this interior on the Zest is something we've really liked. It's fresh, it's new, it feels premium, looks smart, everything falls to hand easily, the meters and dials are easy to read, and there's a very interesting touchscreen infotainment system. It has a lot of nice options, like you can reject your call with an SMS. It also reads your SMSs out to you. You can operate the AC from it. So a lot of interesting things going on the interior of the Zest. If there's a fault, it's that there isn't enough storage space in the Zest. The door pockets are too slim and there's just a single shallow cup holder. The Xcent and the Dzire have neatly laid out interiors and equipment levels are good. But of the two, it's the Xcent in particular that looks really nice, and even fit and finish feel as if they're from a class of a car above. The Amaze is the sore loser here, sharing the Brio's basic interiors that really land up looking too much of a mix and match of colors and low rent compared to the rest. Now let's take a look at what kind of equipment these cars offer. It's hard not to be impressed with how much Tata has packed into the Zest, particularly its new Harman-sourced touchscreen infotainment system on the top XT trim. The unit looks and feels very upmarket and has a lot of functionality built into it. There's a visual aid for the parking sensors, and you can control the climate control, album covers of audio tracks, display in full color, and it will also read your texts. It accepts voice commands as well. The audio system is missing a CD player, but it does get aux, USB, and an SD card reader. And the 8-speaker sound setup is fantastic. However, the screen is a little hard to read in daylight and voice commands don't work flawlessly. LED daytime running lights and follow me home projector lamps, which none of the others in this bunch have, are a part of the equipment package on the top-end model of the Zest. The top-end SXO may not have a touchscreen, but it does offer more by way of 1 GB of onboard storage, a rear-view camera, a cool glove box, keyless entry and go, and even rear aircon vents. It's the only car in this bunch with them. It also gets a leather-wrapped steering wheel, audio climate control, Bluetooth, USB, aux, and a CD player. And despite the Zest's touchscreen, for all practical purposes, it's the Hyundai that's the best equipped car in this comparison. The Dzire ZXi isn't too far behind, getting all the basics apart from Bluetooth and parking sensors. The Amaze, however, takes a huge hit here. There's no CD player, no Bluetooth, no climate control, and no parking sensors either. It's good to see that all of the cars in this top trim level have been given adequate safety kit in the form of 2 airbags and ABS with EBD. On paper, it's Tata's new 1.2 Revotron turbocharged motor that seems to have the advantage. It has the highest power at 89 bhp. However, the real advantage of a turbo engine is its torque, which the Zest produces 14.27 kgms of from just 1750 rpm, which seems miles ahead of the other three, and their naturally aspirated engines, which produce between 11.1 and 11.6 kgm of torque, and all of that beyond 4000 RPM. But these other cars do use more modern technologies. So how does all this translate on the road? Let's have a look. The Revotron motor gets cleanly off the line and feels quite nice to drive as long as you keep the motor spinning above 2000 RPM. In fact, feels even stronger once you get past the 3000 RPM mark. But the problem is that when you're driving in the city and in normal conditions, you do tend to fall below the 2000 RPM mark very often. And when you do, you have to work the gears to get a move on again, because below that, the Revotron motor feels very dull. The Revotron really doesn't translate the paper figures onto the road. But Tata, via huge hoardings and full-page ads, have tried to tell us that it's not just one engine, but three rolled into one. Now, this Revotron engine has been touted for having many different modes. There's Eco, there's Normal, and there's Sport. Now, when we hear Sport, we expect quite a lot. You expect a punchy, torquey engine, you expect more revs, and that's not what happens, so you get a bit disappointed. But it's not reason to be disappointed actually, because the engine does get more responsive. It does feel a little livelier. Maybe they should have just called the button Boost instead, and it would have been more apt. The Zest does 0 to 100 in 13.74 seconds, which puts it in the third spot. But it's really the in-gear acceleration where it doesn't hold up as well as the others. And this is the reason for it feeling more lackluster than it actually is. The Amaze's engine is quite noisy, and the lack of cabin insulation makes it more audible on the inside. It feels sluggish at low revs and is not really friendly to stop-start traffic. It makes you work at the gears. However, it's an engine that likes to be revved, and past the 3000 RPM mark, it picks up the pace and feels much better. You enjoy pulling it to the red line, but overtakes will still require a quick shift down. However, if it's just flat-out acceleration you're after, it's the Amaze that's the quickest, with 13.27 seconds to 100. The surprising package in this bunch really is the Xcent. The Xcent feels sprightly and pulls cleanly off the line. But more than anything else, it's a really drivable engine. You can amble around in higher gears at lower RPMs. When you have to slow down, you can just put your foot down and get a move on again pretty easily. You don't have to work the gears too much. So being behind the wheel of this one is a really stress-free and easy experience. Thing is that in any gear at any speed, the Xcent churns out enough punch, so driving really feels hassle-free. And this engine's responsive nature gives it the best in-gear acceleration, which is what you really need in our driving conditions. The Xcent's strength is its drivability, but in flat-out acceleration, it loses out, being the slowest to 100. The Desire's K12 engine, with a very linear acceleration, pulls off the line nicely, but power tapers off in the mid-range, so it doesn't feel as drivable as the Xcent. But it's still a car that's happy to potter around or settle into a comfortable cruise, whichever you like. It also feels the most refined. However, with the Xcent's superior cabin insulation, overall it's the engine you hear the least on the inside. Around the corners or in a straight line, the Zest gives you a sense of confidence, but it doesn't enjoy spirited driving as much as the Amaze or the Dzire. And the Xcent is really one of Hyundai's nicest handling cars, and even the steering offers good feedback. But again, in comparison to the Amaze and Dzire, it falls a little short. The Dzire is composed and fun to drive on a winding section of road. However, an inconsistent steering does mar the experience. Now, so far the Amaze hasn't done too well on most counts, but where it really scores is around the corners. You can throw the Amaze around corners quite confidently. Steering points the car exactly where you want it to go. The nose tucks into corners really nicely. The car feels planted and you always feel confident. If you had to pick a car that would give you the best compromise of handling and backseat comfort, this would be it. It really has a great ride and handling compromise. And it's also the one that offers the most room in the back seat. The back seat of the Amaze feels wide, it feels spacious, you have loads of leg room. There's a flattish floorboard, so the third passenger is going to be comfortable. And the nice part about it is that this glass area actually gives it a very roomy feeling. What lets this backseat experience down is the lack of insulation. You can hear a lot of sounds filtering through. However, if it's just comfort in the backseat you're after, then it's really hard to beat the Zest. Now, if you're someone who likes to be chauffeured around a lot, there's a few reasons that you're really going to enjoy the backseat of the Zest. The main one being the ride quality. This just flattens out the roads, doesn't let much filter through, and you often don't even realize how bad the roads outside really are. It's also very generous on space. And the other thing is that it just shuts the world outside off from you. There's no suspension or road noises filtering through. The Xcent comes in second on ride quality. It's not as cushy as the Zest at low speeds, but on its own it's actually quite good and maintains its composure even as you gain speed. So be it in the city or out on the highway, the Xcent offers a good ride quality. The Dzire has a nice soft edge at low speeds, but it's quite softly sprung, and as you gain momentum, there's a considerable amount of vertical movement, and you feel that on undulating sections of road. It's also the most cramped backseat. Well, that's the test out on the road, but let's get back to paper and see how easy these cars are on the wallet. The Amaze really comes out ahead where fuel efficiency is concerned. And it's hard to beat the Zest on value. The Swift Dzire, the tried and tested sensible buy that's backed by a strong brand. But in this competition, it is the oldest, and it does feel like that, a little old and tired. And when you match it up with the competition, it loses out on space, be it the back seat or the boot. Which brings us to the Amaze, quite a strong car, be it its performance or the practicality that it packs in. It's got a spacious, comfortable back seat and the second largest boot. But where this car loses out is in the premium feel. Be it refinement levels that just don't match up to the rest, or the interiors that feel very basic in this competition. And when we talk about interiors, we have to come to the Zest. Now, this is an interior that quite surprised us. It's refreshing, it's nice, it's new, feels premium, feels plush, and the back seat feels as good too. And that's because this ride absolutely demolishes everything that the Indian roads have to throw at it. Where it loses out is under the hood. This Revertron engine feels a little lackluster. And that brings us to the last man standing, the Xcent. Now, this is a car that's an all-rounder, and that's because it's really easy to drive, it's practical, it's spacious, it's got the largest boot, it feels comfortable to ride in, it's loaded with equipment, it's got a nice interior, looks good, and comes at great value, which is why it is the last man standing and our winner.